Granny's Hot Cross Buns, a story written for Bailey Beam and other children, a tribute to Estoy Huss Johnson. It's the week before Easter. Most people are thinking about dyeing eggs, the Easter bunny, and Easter baskets filled with candy. For our family and the people in a small town in North Carolina, Easter means much more. It was the time for Granny to make her famous hot cross buns. Before our family moved to town, no one had ever heard of hot cross buns. Granny would explain it's a yeast bread with fruit in it, and a cross made of white icing is placed on the top. The cross means we are asking God to bless the people who receive the buns. Hot cross buns are a European tradition that began in England. No one knows for sure just how they got started or how Granny learned about them. Those who knew Granny believed she might have learned about the buns from friends who came from Europe. Granny was always making friends wherever she went, and after you met her, you knew you had a friend for life. Granny also loved to cook and delighted in trying things that were out of the ordinary. Granny put a lot of love and energy in everything she did, and especially in cooking. Cooking was one of the ways Granny could show how much she cared about people. In Granny's family, preparing special foods for family and friends was very important, and sharing that food created a bond of friendship with anyone who received it. The word companion comes from a Latin word for bread. That may be why so many friends share baked goods. It doesn't really matter how she learned about hot cross buns. It is more important to know how this simple gift changed a town. Granny began making hot cross buns for members of her church. Then she started giving them to friends. The gift of the buns seemed to help so many people that Granny gradually expanded her list. Over the years, Granny's hot cross buns became a local Easter tradition, something the whole community anxiously awaited. People looked forward to the tasty yeast rolls, but more than anything, they looked forward to a visit from Granny and her helpers. Newcomers to town soon heard about Granny, and they too would be added to her long list. Just before Easter, Granny would stock her kitchen with yeast, sugar, flour, and cinnamon. One trip to her favorite grocery store would signal that the time for her famous buns was at hand. Granny loved tradition, and according to tradition, the hot cross buns should be made on Maundy Thursday, the Thursday before Easter. The buns should be eaten the next day, which is Good Friday. Granny would start making the buns early Thursday morning. No one in our family ever planned anything else, because that was the day Granny would be baking for the whole community. The entire house smelled like the finest bakery in the world. We would rush down the stairs to find Granny hard at work. First, she would carefully measure the flour, sugar, and yeast, and then she would make it into a large ball of dough. We loved the aroma of the cinnamon and the dough rising. It took most of the morning just to make the dough. After Granny let it rise several times, she added candied fruit, the kind you have in fruit cakes at Christmas. The candied fruit gave the hot cross buns a delicate sweet taste that set them apart from ordinary bread. After adding the fruit, it was time to shape the dough into balls. That's when our job began. Granny let us paint the buns with a light coat of egg white to give the buns a shiny appearance. Granny made us feel that this was the most important job. When we were old enough, we would be allowed to cut the crosses in each bun using Granny's special kitchen scissors. This was the opening we would use for the icing cross we would add later. Each of us had a job, and the family eagerly helped Granny with her mission. Our jobs became more important as years passed, and Granny's hands grew tired and weak. When the hot cross buns were ready to be packaged, we carefully put them in bags and got them ready to deliver. Like Santa at Christmas, Granny kept a list of everyone who would receive buns. She knew who was in each family and just how many hot cross buns they needed. Even though she had a list, she was always prepared with a few extras just in case there was a stranger who needed an Easter blessing. To Granny, a stranger was just a friend you hadn't met yet. Granny would make hundreds of hot cross buns. She made sure that anyone who needed to be reminded that someone cared would get her special Easter bread. The hot cross buns were delicious, but it was the way Granny made and delivered them that made Easter so special. Everyone loved Granny because she was the kind of person who saw right through to a person's heart. You would never imagine that when Granny was growing up, people were judged by the color of their skin or what they believed. The color of your skin or where you lived didn't matter to Granny. The only thing she cared about was the kindness in your heart. Granny was a member of everyone's family, and they were hers. That's why she was everybody's Granny, and people looked forward to her visits. On Good Friday, the Friday before Easter, Granny would get a group of children and travel through the town to deliver the hot cross buns and Easter wishes. The children realized that the buns meant the most to those who were sick and lonely. Granny left them with a twinkle in their eyes, a twinkle that would probably last until next Easter. There was a lasting happiness just because someone cared enough to visit. After many years of making hot cross buns, Granny's body grew too weak to continue. People in the community wondered if Easter would be quite the same. Some even tried to make the buns because they wanted to maintain Granny's tradition. Granny was grateful they tried, but the thing that no one could replace was Granny's loving touch and thoughtfulness. Granny doesn't make hot cross buns anymore, but her legacy has remained strong. The children she taught to show acts of love and kindness are the same ones who continue to make the hot cross buns, teach young children, and serve their community. They teach their children about Granny's love and the need to share that love with others. According to legend, hot cross buns bring good luck, but to all who knew her, the good luck was having someone like Granny in your life. It's the week before Easter. The kitchen is filled with the smell of cinnamon and fresh dough. In one small town, there is a special feeling of love in the air because people are thinking of Granny. Even though they miss her, they think of her hot cross buns and smile.